Welcome to episode 14 of Creative Dynamos. Today I am talking with Mike Mollman. Is that right, Mike?
That's right.
Hey, all right. Start off with a bang, pronouncing your name right. Should have checked that before we started, but that's okay. Mike is a writer who lives in Richmond, Virginia. He has written 6 books, some fantasy, some science fiction. Mike, you and I touched base first over Threads, I believe.
Could be. Yeah.
Mike, you're also a YouTuber.
Yep. Bald and balding.
And
I'm the bald one.
and I watched a good chunk of one of your more recent episodes. Good stuff over there. So, tell me a little bit about your background as a writer. How long have you been writing?
I am the oddball. I did not grow up wanting to be a writer. In fact, for the longest time, I didn't think I could be. I didn't take English 101 or 102 in college. So I ended up, the story is on just February 28th, 2017, a friend of mine asked me to go to an author signing. And I was like, all the reading I've done, I've never ever met an author before. Yes, I'm going. So I didn't ask any questions. And this is my problem. And what happened is I went and I was the only male in the room. And the woman wrote love triangles, young adult love triangles. And there were moms there with their 14 and 12-year-old daughters. And I'm going, they're going to think I'm here to, spy on their daughters or something. So I was like, you know what? I was like, I should just leave. But my friend Angela, I would never live it down if I did. I was like, so I'm stuck. I have to stay. I was like, fine, own it. I sat in the first row, front and center. Everyone had to think I was a freak of some sort, but at least they didn't think I was staring at their daughters. And then after she finished talking about this book that I have zero interest in, she said, "Are there any questions?" And it was just crickets. So I finally was like, "How did you publish this? How did you get your publisher?" "Oh, I didn't. I self-published." "Tell me more." So I hijacked her whole author signing thing to tell me how you go about self-publish, because I had never even considered it. And then after it was over, I bought her book because I had to. You had to. Uh, so then I was like, fine, I'm going to read this, and I'm just going to mock her the whole time because there's nothing I care about. And I read it, and I was like, okay, I don't care for the plot, but it's not poorly written by any stretch of the imagination. And since I wasn't engaged, but I'm very stubborn, I read the whole book, and I was like, I can write this. I can do this level of writing if this is all it takes. And that's why I started, because my friend had me go to a book signing, and I didn't ask questions. All these other authors you talk to, and they're like, I've known I want to be a writer since I was 5. And I'm like, nope, I was 46.
It's awesome.
So, yeah, I always feel a little guilty, but it is what it is.
Well, no, no reason to feel guilty at all. I think that's amazing. We all have different origin stories, so to speak, and I think that that's one of the amazing things about having this YouTube channel and talking to all of these creative people is learning everybody's background. You kind of think, nah, everybody's kind of the same, but no, everybody's so different in terms of how they arrived where they're at. You and I have something in common. That is, we both write in more than one genre. A lot of the authors, particularly a lot of the newer authors that I talk to, tend to focus either on one book or on one genre. But you are out here with some radically different stuff going on. Why have you chosen or have you chosen to write in more than one genre?
So earlier in my career, I would have said that it was a choice, but it's really not. It's the characters kind of demand that I come play over in this sandbox. So I will say the first book I ever wrote was The Haley Traveler, which is my sci-fi, and I wrote it and I rewrote it 9 times, I believe. And then I was like, I need a break. I wonder if I can write fantasy because I'd not published anything. It's just kind of for me at that point. It's all fun because I was going to be the next Tolkien as soon as I published. The reality of the world had not hit me yet. So I wrote a fantasy, and then I ended up writing 4 fantasy books. And then I kind of got burned out, and I was like, well, I got Haley over here collecting dust. Why don't I fix that up and publish it? And it was the first thing I tried to write, and it was atrocious. So I rewrote it 6 more times before I finally published it. But that was the first thing I wrote, but it's the 5th book I actually published. Yeah, and I started off when writing, I read an article saying how if you know your personality types, they said someone who's an INTJ cannot be a hero. They just don't have the makeup for one, but they make great villains. And they said, Voldemort and Magneto and Hannibal Lecter, all INTJs. Well, I'm an INTJ. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to write it. The hero is going to be an INTJ because I was told I can't. And it has caused some issues with writing epic fantasy when your main character wants to hide out in the forest away from people. But it's doable with an asterisk. Yeah, it just I don't know. I get ideas in my head, and I start writing.
So when you say you get ideas and you just start writing, how does that look in your case? Do you plan stuff out? Do you outline, or do you just kind of go for it?
Oh, I plan. I plan a lot. I plan for this year. I plan for the books that I'm going to write, and it's all fruitless because I end up doing something other than what I planned anyway. For instance, Proxima Station was not even a thought in my head until April. It was not on my plan for things to do in 2025. And I just said, you know what? I want to write humorous sci fi. The 5 aliens are going to be based on the 5 dogs that I've had, and all their little idiosyncrasies are going to be racial traits for these aliens. And it's just going to be the guy's going to be led around by the nose and barely head above water the whole time. And I just started writing it and was not planned. I've published Proxima. Proxima 2 is with my editor. I'm actually working on Proxima 3 while I'm waiting for my edits back. And this was nowhere in my plan for 2025. I planned, but I don't know why.
I think that in my case, like it's better to have a plan and go off the rails than to not have a plan at all.
Oh, Pantsers just absolutely frightened me. I'm just going to sit down and start typing. Oh no, could never do that. I mean, effectively, I destroy all my plans, but at least I have a plan before I start.
So, pantsers scare you, you were
Oh
saying.
yes.
I have a tendency to pants things. If I know it's going to be like a short story, I'm a bit of a pantser.
So for me, I will not start writing. I call them my signposts. And for like a short story, I need 2 signposts. But for like a longer book, 5 or 6. And then I know that I'm writing from A up to B, and then I know I'm writing towards C. I don't know what exactly is going to happen, but I know my target,
Yeah.
and I have to have a target to write towards, or else, yeah, it's scary.
Yeah, and that's kind of why I'm able to like pants on short stories because as long as I can see the ending,
Yep,
then then I'm good. Or at least what I think the ending is going to be, then I'm good. And a lot of times I'll take a short story or the idea for a short story, and if I like it, I'll expand it into something longer.
yep.
I've done that with a few things. What are your influences in terms of what you write? Who do you look to when you, as a person who came to writing a little bit later in life, whose influences?
When I was teenager and early 20s, I read over 100 each of the Dragonlance and the Forgotten Realms books. So when I went to write, that's how my writing style is very similar to. In interviews like this, I insist on not invoking Tolkien because everyone says Tolkien.
Right.
So I would say David Eddings was a book I wrote or I read, I did not write it, in my teenage years. And I really love that. I haven't read it in 30 years. I don't know if I still would, but when I was much younger, I thought it was the best thing I ever read.
Sometimes it's better for us not to revisit the things that we enjoyed in our
Yep.
youth. Um, for sure. So those are your fantasy influences. What about your science fiction influences?
I loved Isaac Asimov, and I read some Arthur C. Clarke, but he's probably a little too hard sci-fi for me.
Okay.
But mostly Asimov. Oh, there's a host of others whose names I can't remember. But I read voraciously in my late teens through my 20s, and then I kind of stopped because it's all kind of starts sounding familiar to me. And I kind of went on like a 15-year hiatus, and I only started reading again like 2005 or so. And then another 12 years after that, I started writing because that's the story of my life, which is again all pants.
Okay. So one of the things that I noticed when I was looking over your body of work is that you have at least one of your books is humorous or advertised as being humorous.
Yes,
Um,
hopefully.
Dying is easy, writing comedy is hard, uh,
Yes.
as the saying goes. Um, what inspired you to write a humorous? Is it one of your science fiction or is it one of your fantasy novels? Remind me.
It's sci fantasy, really. I would call it sci fi, but I'm not too concerned about the physics. But it came in my head. I'd read a couple cozy books, and I was like, I wonder if I could write a cozy book. And it turns out, no, I can't. But when I just the idea came to me as the five aliens are going to be based on my five dogs, and each one of them had their own little idiosyncrasies to make that a racial trait. They have a space station. They invite humans up, and my intrepid main character is an anthropologist who just got his PhD, and they're like, you know what? We can't understand these aliens. You have the background for it. Come up here and tell us what makes them tick. And his head is just barely above water when he gets there, and he pretty much stays that way through the whole series. Is my goal.
Okay.
And I thought it would be funny. As also a way to spend time with my dogs, who four of the five are now dead. So get to go back through memory lane, and I was like, you know what? I'll try to make it funny. And I was aware of the quote you said, comedy is hard, and I was like, let's see. And yes, it is so much second guessing yourself. You write something, you're like, that's funny. Is it funny? Will anyone else find it funny? Maybe I should delete it. Delete it. What am I going to put now? If I can't, and just, oh my God, you second guess yourself. It's worse than writing your first book. But then finally, you're just like, you know what? I think it's funny. And I don't have a traditional publisher who has a six-figure, advance writing on this. So just write what you like. And then you're like, okay, fine. Enough of the being silly about it. Just write it and move on with your life. And if it's not funny for someone else, you'll get a 2-star rating. Okay.
So did you have anybody read that before you publish it for not for necessarily editorial purposes, but to see if some of the jokes landed?
I had several beta readers, and most everyone, which I took as a positive, maybe it wasn't, but they said, I'm not even sure what I just read. Oh my God.
Nice.
So I was like, well, Okay, that sounds positive to me. Let's publish. Yeah, it's a short book. It's only 140 pages, so they're easy to write. And again, everyone has told me, it's like, your character development, I can see each of your aliens. I know exactly what their personalities are like. You really like knew who they were. And I'm like, I lived with each one of them for at least a dozen years. I should know what they're like.
I
So that was the easy part. And that people compliment me all the time. And I'm like, that's just cheating. So,
I think that's such a cute idea, making each of the races after one of your dogs. I love that. I have three dogs and several cats. I think I've lost count of how many cats we have. So I could definitely see doing something like that for sure. And that's such a good way of like, it answers the question of how do you make something alien?
yep. So the nice thing about my dogs or these characters is pick any three of them and say, this is a situation they're in. What happens? And I don't have to hesitate. I'm like, obviously, Grendel's going to throw anyone against the wall who doesn't listen to her. Buddy's going to run around in circles and yip the whole time. I'm like, I know what they're going to do. There's never oh, what happens here? I'm like, it's just their personalities run through the characters, and I'm like, I know what they do. So and they all had different motivations. A couple were like food based, others just wanted affection. Grendel just wanted everyone to obey her. So they all have different motivations. So when I'm writing, the aliens come off as all different because every one of my dog was vastly different from the other one. So again, this is my cheat code.
And the nice thing is if they, if they can't sue you later, if you did the same thing with people, like, and they didn't like it, they could take you to court.
So I do have a story for you.
Oh, okay.
Uh, when I was writing my fantasy book, I asked one of my brothers, I was like, do you want to be in the book? I can write you in as a character. And he said, no, absolutely not. Tim is my oldest brother, and he suffers from oldest sibling itis. He's always right because it's his birthright. And he's always wildly confident, even when he shouldn't be. So I wrote this druid, and I called the druid Caradoc. And I'm like, I just won't tell him that this person is based on him. And so he read an early draft, and he's like, Hedrid, I don't really like him. Oswin's okay, but Caradoc, you need to have more Caradoc. Caradoc is amazing. And I'm like, of course you freaking like Caradoc. And immediately, as soon as he said that, I'm like, I'm killing that character. I don't know when, but I'm killing him.
And I'll make sure that he dies slowly.
Well, I need him for the plot, so I'm like, I can't kill him yet. But when I get to book 7, he's getting axed. That's a given.
So you mentioned that your humorous sci fantasy is fairly short.
Yeah.
Um, but I looked at the page count on your fantasy novels, and they're not like doorstops, but they're significantly longer than your more humorous story. What was that? What drove that being shorter? Was it because you just it was an experiment, or what made you write something that was that significantly shorter than your fantasy novels?
Talking about the fantasy novels, I get in trouble all the time with other fantasy authors because I tell them I have a 500-page limit. If it's over that, you need a better editor. I'm not going to read it.
Yes.
And I tell people I'm too old. I don't want to take up that much time. I might die of a heart attack tomorrow. So shorter books. And most of these authors are in their 20s and 30s and think this is the most ludicrous thing they've ever heard. So when I wrote Becoming a Druid, which was my first fantasy book, I was like, shoot for 400 pages. That's about right. 360, 420, somewhere in that range is the perfect length book as far as I'm concerned. So Druid was that. Then I wrote To Speak with Elders, which is now book 3 in the series. And after that, that's when I realized my main character, Grommy, who's an introvert and wants to hang out in the forest talking to owls, is not conducive to having all-out war because he's not going to go into throne rooms. He doesn't like people. So I was like, well, I'm kind of stuck now. So books 2 and 4 in the series are actually novella collections because I had to take side characters who I introduced and have them go and do these things that my main characters absolutely would not do.
Hmm.
So Sins and Sorrows was the third book in the series I wrote, but it's book 2 because I'm nuts. But that's actually 2 novellas and 3 short stories. And then Desperate Dispatches is book 4, and that's actually 4 novellas.
Okay.
So the odd numbers are complete novels, and the even numbers are going to be novella collections. There's going to be 7 books total. But it just, I start writing novellas because I was like, I have to fill in the gaps here because otherwise I do, Greek tragedy and this amazing thing happened off stage. And, that gets old fast. So I said, okay, we'll just use the side characters. I'll flesh them out some, give them personality, and this is what they contributed to the whole. So that's where I start writing novellas, and I realized it's a lot easier to write a novella. It's not as intricate. You do what you want, get in, get out, you're done. And I absolutely love the 3 short stories I wrote. Some of my favorite writing. And stupid me, I've never gone back to writing another short story since. Absolutely love those 3, but I want to get this story out, and then I want to get Haley out, and now Proxima out. I have like 36 books I want to publish, and I'm like, I turned 55 on Monday, so let's do the math. How many do I have to write, or do I have to live to be 95? So,
Yeah,
yeah,
you and I are very close in age. I'm 54. I just turned 54 in July, so we're both feeling that ticking clock.
yeah,
Um, for sure. I love writing novellas for very much the reason that you stated. As a reader, I want to read something that I can read in one sitting, maybe two. The only exception to that in the last couple of years has been a friend of mine who wrote an absolute doorstop of a novel, Mike Malman. He wrote an epic urban fantasy that is 700 pages, I think. But he's one of those writers that can write that long of a novel and it does not feel like it's that long of a novel.
what is the title of that book?
It is Paragon Exordium.
That's what I thought. Yeah, we've had him on our show. Yeah,
Yeah.
he very interesting person.
He's a great guy, and it's an amazing
Yep,
book. If you haven't had a chance to read it, I know you're like you said, you're opposed to reading longer books. That one gets a buy from me. I tell people, in fact, I in my review of it, I gave it an extra star than 5. So it got 6 stars from me because it got me to read an epic fantasy, which is something that I am kind of allergic to because almost every epic fantasy that I've tried to read in the last 10 or 15 years has been too much like a Tolkien ripoff.
yeah,
And two, it absolutely did not read like an epic fantasy. I mean, one, it's an urban fantasy more than it is a traditional epic fantasy, but it's epic in scope and it's epic in length. It's really good, is what I'm saying.
yep.
Highly recommend it. Um, but for that same reason, I love to write novellas and I love to write short stories. So if you look on my Amazon page, you'll see almost as many short story collections as you'll see, and novellas as you'll see novels, because I just like to write things that I can write in 1 or 2 sittings, and I love to read things that I can read in 1 or 2 sittings. And it's because I
Yep.
have ADD, and even on medication, I have my preferences. So you're an indie, much like myself. You don't have a publisher that is pushing you to write certain things and write them in certain
Right.
directions. What made you decide to go in that direction?
So when I started out, I sent 3 query letters out, and they're like, don't just send out a form letter. Take your time, research the people, tailor it to the person you're sending it to. And I was like, you know what? This is for the bird, and now I have to wait for their approval. I was like, no, I'm just going to publish myself because I did not have illusions of me being the next Tolkien.
Right.
I'd like to dream about my show being on a Netflix series, but I know it's not going to. So I'm like, why am I going to wait for permission from someone else to basically write something that I really like? And I'm just going to go with, if I really like it, there will be other people out there who do too. So I almost regret that I did those 3 query letters. I did actually get replies for all 3 of them, and all 3 of them said no. I don't know. I guess that's a slight win that you actually got a response. But
Absolutely. Because a lot of times you'll just get dead air.
yep. Now one did take 9 months before I got the response, but by that time I'd already published the book. So, but
I want to say, like, I haven't read any of your stuff yet, but when I saw your covers, I was like, these really speak to me. Like, they're very pulpy.
yep.
They're very good quality for, I won't even say for an indie cover. I think they're just very good quality, but they're very pulpy in nature, which I think probably speaks to what you're putting out there. And where do you get your covers from?
So the fantasy books, all of them are made by Dmitry Yahowski, and he charges $120 for a cover. I have talked to authors who have spent $1,500 on a cover, and
Easily,
that's insane.
easily,
Um, so good old Dimitri, he's tried and true to the point now where I'm like, this is a scene. Draw what you think is best, the most dramatic, and then I leave it to him. And I'm hands off because I can't draw sick people
right?
and I can't arrange things well. So just let the artist be an artist, and I'll take what he gives me. Haley Traveler is actually, now I've just gone blank on his name. Matt Slay. Matt Slay is his name. Back in the day, he used to draw for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle comic books.
Okay.
Um, he actually lives in Southern Virginia, just a couple hours away from me. And his covers are 400, but if you can see here, that's the cover. He actually did the original art. I get to keep the original art as well as my cover, which is that one above me.
Okay.
So I actually get a painting. And when I went to get it, he's like, "It's yours. You have all rights to it. If you want to sign it and tell everyone you did it, great, do it. I got my money. I'm done." And I'm like, "No,
Nice.
no, no, sign it." Because one, no one will believe that I did it because I can't draw straight lines. But yeah, he's great to work with. And I just kind of like, "Here's the scene. What do you think?" And he sketches something out in like 5 minutes, and I'm like, "Let's go with that." So these are actually the first three books in the Haley series. He's done the covers for. I've only put the first book out. The second one will come out early next year. And then I don't know what I'm going to write next. I could plan, but that doesn't matter. It doesn't mean that's what I'm going to do.
Now, I mentioned earlier, you and I met, I think, at Big Lick Comic Con.
Yep.
Yeah. So, how many events like that have you done?
I've been going to ComicCons for 4 years now.
Hmm.
Um, I started in 2021 when I had one book, which I do not recommend, but I do 12 to 15 a year. Some of them are local events that are just like a Saturday only. So if you count those, then I do 15. If you count true Comic Cons that are multi day, then I probably do 8 or 9.
And you've had a fair amount of success with those?
I generally break even or make money, yes.
Okay. Because that's one thing that this year was the year that I wanted to try getting out and doing more in-person events because between COVID and a bunch of other stuff, I haven't done a whole lot of in-person events. I've got a friend of mine who's a publisher who's local. I'm in Winston-Salem, and I've gone to stuff with him, and he's always like, "Yes, you're helping me, so you can have a portion of my table, and
Yep.
if you can pay me a little bit for to cover the cost, that's fine." And so that's what I did for a while, and now I'm starting to do stuff on my own. And one of the things that I've been telling a lot of authors this year is go out and find these local shows,
Yep.
whatever's appropriate for your genre, and get in front of your readers physically. Do you find, besides being like rewarding monetarily to a degree, what do you get out of going to these local shows?
So my whole thing with being an author, because again, I'm not looking for a Netflix series, but I'm like, if I'm going to do it, I want to see how good can I be at doing it. And so money is one way to measure your success.
Yes.
It's not the end all be all, but it's a measurement. So I like to do that to talk to people. And I actually had one person come up when I was at Cincinnati's Comic Con, and he just sort of stared at me, and then he like kind of ran over, and I'm like, "What's going on?" And he gets over and he goes, "Oh my God, you are my favorite author. No one has ever written anything better than you." And because I'm an idiot, the first words out of my mouth were, "You need to find better authors." But when you get repeat people are like, "Hey, I bought Haley. I loved it. I want to try becoming a druid now." I mean, no, that's validating. It's like, you know what? Someone likes it. Most of the sales, you never hear from the people again. Did they read it? Did they use it for kindling? Who knows?
Right.
But when you get that, it's always nice to. I read it. This was really engaging. I love this or that. Just when you get that, it's like, okay, you know what? I'm writing stories because I'm entertained, and I think other people will be too. So when you get a little positive feedback like that, absolutely wonderful.
Yes. I think for me, it's helped me hone my pitch,
Yep.
which I can transfer to online sales too. You know, when you have to like you've got 5 seconds to hook somebody that's right there in front of you at a table. And if you can figure out how to do that, then it's a lot easier to do that on social media, on videos, etc. I think what's most gratifying for me though is like I write my favorite thing to write is horror, but I have a young adult series, and one of the things that is very gratifying for me is when I have somebody who buys that for their son, daughter, niece, nephew, grandchild, because I wrote that series for my children.
Oh,
And
that's cool.
and so, that's really a big deal when somebody buys that for their kids or whatever kids are in their lives. So I love that that validation.
Yeah.
But then I get the weird ones. Like I was at a signing at a local bookstore, and this guy just walks up, grabs the book that I'm there to sign, although I had several of my books with me, and is like, "I'll take it," and buys it. I didn't pitch it. I didn't. I was like, I didn't know this guy from Adam's House Cat,
Yep.
and I was like, it was like getting hit by a bus in the best possible way. I just, man, but he got it for his son who was there with him, and I was just like, thanks.
Yeah. So I
um,
had one time this year actually when I was at a Comic Con, and a guy came up and he goes, "Hey, was your book just featured on Talking Stories podcast this week?" I'm like, "I think so." I mean, I sent that book to him, and he just said, "Hey, becoming a druid. You know, it's about this." He goes, "I want it." I'm like, "Oh, so yeah, let me tell you, it's about Grom." He goes, "I want to buy it," and I'm like, "Shut up! Only thing you can do is talk him out of it."
it's already sold, brother.
Yeah, shut up, just take his money. But that was I reached out to the booktuber and I was like, "Hey, never had this happen before," but the guy just said, "I saw it on his show. I want it now." And I'm like, "Done." I'm like, "I have three more in the series if you want them." He only bought the one, but
I mean,
that's fine.
so I my at Big Lick, I had two things happen that just tell you that just proved to me that you got to shoot your shot. I
Yep.
walked up to two guys and I was like, there it was with the vendors next to us, and I was like, "You guys look like you're men of refined taste. I think you would enjoy this book." And it was like the cheapest book I had bought with me, and gave him my little pitch. And one of the guys bought it and gave me a 20. But not only did he buy it, he gave me a 20 and told me to keep the change. I was like, nobody has ever bought a book and gave me a tip.
Yeah.
Um, and the other thing that happened was like I had gone on. There was a friend of mine who has a YouTube show, and they were there. And one of the hosts came over after I had sat down for their show, and was like, "I want to get that book you were talking about." And I was like, "Well, you know, you're gonna want to buy the next book in the series too. So here." And he bought both books. So always upsell
Yep.
and always shoot your shot.
Yep. So when you're talking about upsell, this is my Becoming a Druid, the hardback. So it's wrapped in the map where the story actually takes place in, and I have a wax seal.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm always like, well, you can get the paperback, or for a few bucks more,
You can get the nice.
and if you have 6x9 books, 11 by 17 paper is perfect. You don't have to cut it or anything. You can just wrap it as is for a reasonable sized book, or at least by my definition, a reasonable sized book. So you can always try to upsell them with just wrapping it in the map and something like that. The other thing I will say that a friend of mine, James Maxey, I did a couple events with him at ComicCons, and when Proxima Station came out, I was like, it's just a novella. I'll put it over at the stack with the $10 novellas instead of with my books. And he's like, no, put it with your books. If you don't sell any today, then move it over. And I was like, oh, sure, why not? It's a Friday. It's not, sales will be terrible anyway. I sold more of Proxima Station than anything else. And I sold it for $18 where I was going to sell it for 10, but I was like, why not? I'll try it one day. And so now every time I sell the book, I'm like, well, there's $8 more I made because I took a chance. And just telling people 3 hours and you will finish this book is a huge selling point to a lot of people.
Absolutely.
Uh, it's my best-selling book this year, or at least the second half of the year. I didn't publish it till the end of July, but I'm selling more of this at every Comic-Con now than any other book. So I think shorter is probably the better way to go. I have a book. I sell other people's books at Comic-Cons, other indie authors.
Hmm.
And the one lady has written an 800-page standalone fantasy epic. And I'm like, if you want the best value, here's a door stopper. If you want something you can read in 3 hours, here's my book. And I get a lot of people who will buy both. I guess they figure it averages out.
Oh,
I don't know.
absolutely.
But
So
hey, I'll take it.
how much do you sell your novella for?
I sell paperbacks for 18 and hardbacks. I tell people 30, but if they even blink once, I'll cut the price to 25.
See, I have just raised some of my book prices because yeah, that's a struggle that I have. But I do tell people like always have a book on your table that you can sell for what you would not even think about. Like just no like just a throwaway amount of money. And I have a couple of books like that that are just really short, like shorter than yours, that I sell for $8 or $10. And I sell those like no problem because people will drop 8 or 10 bucks easy.
Yeah.
Um,
So, oh,
Go ahead.
no. I was just going to say the other thing that I learned from James Maxey is he's been writing for 30 years. He has 30 some odd books now. But he's like, Mike, it is really hard to make money at a Comic Con if you're doing it $15 at a time, or $18 in my case at a time. He's like, I have these series. Each of these series are 4 books. They're finished, so I combined them into a compendium, one volume edition, all 4. I have the illustrated faux leather hardback for 100. I have the hardback for 75, and I have the paperback for 50. He goes, it cost me $12 to have it printed, and people are like, oh, $50 is cheap. Let me give you $50. Um,
It's
so I would love to finish a series so I could actually do this.
a good idea.
Um, but yeah, he said, if you're going to do it, hand to hand combat, basically one book at a time, it's hard.
Yeah.
When you can do these, and he sells the faux leather illustrated ones for $100. He'll sell 1 or 2 at every show, and I'm like, oh, to have $200 guaranteed at every Comic Con I go to, how nice would that be? So
Well, and having, My one of my issues as a writer is I have all of these. I write kind of shotgun. I have I have lots of books, but not lots of series. The couple of series I do have are only like 2 books deep. So I need to finish another book in those series so that I at least have a trilogy that I can do something like that with.
Yep. So when I started, my fantasy is going to be 7 books. Haley is going to be 5 books. Proxima, the first arc is going to be 6 books, and then there's a second arc I'm going to do after that, which I don't know, let's say 6 books. I don't know yet, but so I am nowhere close to finishing any of my 3 series. And every time I see James, he's like, "Don't go all the way. Just cut it off. Finish off the series. One more fantasy book, 5 books instead of 7." And I'm like, "It's not the story I want to tell. I got to do 7." And I'm looking at 2029. I can maybe be done, and it's just a little disheartening that I have 4 more years. But I also have a full time job because I do like having a roof over my head.
Yes, you and I both, for sure. And on top of that, you and I both have our YouTube shows. So tell me a little bit about your YouTube show.
So the YouTube show started because Rosaire Bushy is my co-host. We were at a Comic Con, and at Comic Cons, you get there like at 9 a.m. when it starts at 10:30,
Yeah.
and then you have an hour and a half of just twiddling your thumbs, and you walk around like, "Do you think today is going to be a good sales day?" Because you have nothing else to talk about with all the other vendors, and after you ask that 16 times, you're like, "Well, I frittered away an hour and a half." And Roe was said, "You know what? We should do a YouTube channel." I was like, I don't know. That sounds like a time suck. I don't have a lot of time as is. He goes, no, no. Instead of us wandering around asking everyone the same questions for which no one has an answer to, because we all just hope the answer is yes, he goes, why don't we take this dead time and interview other authors before the show starts at their booth so they have all their stuff behind them, and then we can edit it, and then we can, have a YouTube channel based on that, and we just do it based on the Comic Cons we go to. And I was like, I don't know. I don't know how to edit video, and I don't really want to learn because, again, it sounds like a time suck. And that's when Ro just looked at me and goes, do you ever listen to anything I say? I've been in media relations for 30 years. I will do all the video editing. I'm like, oh,
In that case,
okay. And then we did our first live show, and we have not done another edited one since. We just do all live all the time. And we tell people our shtick is we do not prepare, do not expect a long, in-depth conversation because we're just going to throw random things at people. And it's basically you just shoot the shit for an hour with other people and commiserate about being an author and how you wish you'd made more money but you're never going to.
yes.
And then it's done. And we each have our hot button issues that our hot takes that people like to egg us on in the comments. Like I cannot stand George R. R. Martin. Anything he's written, it's just boring, and I am not afraid to tell people that.
Right.
Ro, if you mention Captain Janeway from Star Trek Discovery, he will just go off on a rant every time. Same with Jar Binks, but honestly, who doesn't?
Right.
Um, but I mean, we have so half the fun is that people, the regulars, are like, "What about Darth Jar? Would he win in this battle?" And so it's basically us clowning around with a bunch of friends because we all realize we got a 9 to 5 for till we retire. So let's at least have fun. The one interview this week I did by myself, and I was like, "Look at me, I'm an expert. We're 40 minutes in. Let's talk about your book now."
Nice.
So that's kind of what we do. It's just fun. It's lighthearted. Talk to other booktubers who are absolutely just like you don't prepare like at all. I'm like, I have to look at the person's name right before I go in. That's like, okay, write it down. What is this? Scott. Okay, Scott is who I am talking to. That is the level of prepared we have. But it's a lot of fun, and we've done it long enough now that there's a lot of people in the community who will, at least check in for their friends, if not every episode. There's several people who have said like, I just turn you guys on to have it on as background noise as I'm busy, doing laundry or cleaning the kitchen or whatever.
Absolutely.
And I'm like, hey, I'll take it. the idea that you can sit there for an hour and just stare at Ro and I talking, you'd kind of scare me if you did that every time.
Well, I had you on this afternoon and was listening to your show with, I think it was Tim McKay.
Yep.
That was a good chat. That was a good chat.
Yeah, Tim is well known in the community. He has like 10,000, no, sorry, 18,000 Twitter followers. So everybody knows Tim.
We're about at time, so why don't you tell our watchers slash listeners where we can find you?
I do not have a website anymore. I have a Substack. So if you go to Substack/author Mike Mollman, that's where you'll find me there.
Awesome.
My channel is Bald and Balding. We didn't really think a lot about it when we did it because if you just search Bald and Balding, you get a lot of hair club for men videos.
Yes.
But if you do bald_and_balding, you should find us.
I will make sure
Uh,
I will make sure to link to both of those in the show notes.
and then my books are all on Amazon. I have audiobooks for 3 of my 4 fantasy books, and Proxima Station, the audiobook just came out last week. It's 3 hours, so an afternoon, and if you are like me and you listen to it at 1.5 speed, it's only 2 hours. And there will be more coming. Another Proxima and another Haley are coming, and then I'm going to have to go back to my fantasy world and live there for a while.
Fantastic. Well, Mike, it was so good talking to you,
Thanks, Scott. I appreciate it.
and thanks for coming on.
Thank you.